of all laws and legislation. We beseech you in your abundant mercy to bestow your blessings upon all those who are gathered here and upon all the residents of this great town of Mount Pleasant. Today we ask specifically for your blessings for our elected officials, our mayor, men and women of town council, civil servants, department heads, men and women of law enforcement and first responders. For is it not axiomatic in your sacred tradition that when one of your children reaches beyond the world of his or her own needs or wants, to help elevate, to bring comfort for the benefit of one other person? This is the very act that these noble men and women have dedicated and devote their time to, and it's for these blessings that we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rabbi. We appreciate it. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Item 4, public hearings, awards, and presentations. You can tell by the noise, we have a whole bunch of Mount Pleasant families here today, which is great. So if someone wants to coordinate this, let's get to it. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Tonight we're going to recognize the fact that Mount Pleasant must be the best when it comes to lacrosse, because both our high schools did a great job this year. First, we're going to recognize the Lucy Beckham lacrosse state champions, the 4A state champions. It's just the second year of the program. Are they all still coming in? Ooh, big team. I thought they were all in here. Here we go. All right. In just the second year of the program and without seniors, the Lucy Beckham Bengals lacrosse team went 18-1 and finished the season as the #1 ranked team in South Carolina. The Bengals capped their season. Yeah, all right. They capped their season by defeating Christchurch Episcopal 10-8 in the 4A state championship. Coach Farragut says, in our lacrosse program, a goal of ours always will be to win a state championship, but our main goal will always be to help our players grow into young men on and off the field. I definitely feel like we did that this year. Congratulations, Coach Farragut and our 4A state champion Lucy Beckham lacrosse team.
Awesome.
I'm thinking the picture, but I think we need to do a couple rows here, guys. We're going to split the room half and half. Where do you want them?
Two halves.
Tall in the back.
I don't know what she's doing. Crazy's more of a
Comments, I'm almost shorter than some of these guys that are standing out there.
Oh, she's doing two pictures?
Yeah.
Do we want to try to get on video?
Yeah, get them in.
She's gonna do half.
All right. Everybody, you can see the camera, can see you. Perfect.
Teamwork, teamwork.
Good job, guys.
Outstanding.
All right, thanks, guys. We're going to get this next group in.
Tall guys.
All right, everybody look here. Perfect, thank you.
I think there's 3 teams.
I forget which one which.
Okay. Next, we get to welcome both the boys and girls lacrosse teams from Wando. Is that it? Okay. First, we're going to recognize our Wando girls lacrosse state champions. The Wando women's lacrosse team won this year's state championship with a nail-biter 10-9 victory over last year's champion, Riverside High School. This is Wando women's lacrosse first state championship in over 11 years. The team repeated as lower state champions and finished the season with an overall record of 17-1. The defense was recognized as the best performing in the state and only allowed a total of 65 goals over the 18 games, while the offense piled on 304 goals over the same span. Awesome. Along with 8 players named to the all lower state team and 4 players being named to the all state team, team captain Kelsey Bennett was named lower state attack player of the year, and Ava Delira being named all lower state goalie of the year. Congratulations to Coach Rechtenwald and our 5A state champions, Wanda's girls lacrosse team. Next, we have the Wanda Boys Lacrosse State Champions. The Wanda Boys Lacrosse team finished with a record of 14-3. Wanda has appeared in 11 state championships since 2010. The 2022 season was their 10th straight title by appearance, and their successful season was capped by beating the previously undefeated Nation Ford High School. The 21-9 victory was the largest margin of victory for boys lacrosse in South Carolina lacrosse history. Wanda will be graduating 19 seniors who are members of Wanda's National Honor Society, Beta Club, AP Academy, and 2 are Eagle Scouts who serve their community. 5 athletes will continue their lacrosse careers at the NCAA level. This senior class has embraced and carried on a tradition of hard work and perseverance, which is the standard of Wanda lacrosse. Congratulations to our 5A state champion Wanda boys lacrosse team. All right.
We'll get one big group photo and then photos if that's all right. Perfect. Let's do the boys first. And let's get the girls, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making us Mount Pleasant proud. We appreciate that. Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good to be with you. I'm going ahead and leading on National Safe Boating Week. I would like to invite up David DePlass from the Coast Guard Auxiliary. If you would come up with me, sir. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation on your behalf, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the Low Country is blessed with a dazzling abundance of salt and freshwater venues, offering ready access for those residents and visitors wishing to enjoy recreational boating and fishing. And whereas a steadily growing interest in such pursuits can result in waterways crowded with people new to the activity and unfamiliar with practices and behaviors that keep everyone safe. And whereas ignorance of maritime, quote, rules of the road, consuming alcohol and recreational drugs while operating watercraft, excessive speeding, and failure to wear a personal flotation device exemplify hazardous conduct. And whereas more than 750 people died in boating accidents in the United States in 2020, 3/4 of whom drowned, and nearly 9 out of 10 of those victims were not wearing life jackets. And whereas most of the 5,000 boating accidents reported in 2020 were the result of human error and poor judgment rather than equipment failure or environmental factors. And whereas most tragedies on the water can be prevented by acquiring the knowledge of safe boat handling, exercising common sense and self-control, and exhibiting respect for others. Now, therefore, I, Will Haney, Mayor of the Town of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim May 21st through 27th to be National Safe Boating Week, and urge all those who pursue enjoyment on our fabulous waters to do so while wearing life jackets and practicing safe boating habits. Sir, thank you for being here. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, again, we appreciate the partnership, hundreds of organizations, and to people in the audience, we certainly appreciate the partnership that we have with the Mount Pleasant Fire Department, the Mount Pleasant Police Department, but certainly the citizens of this town. I've been in this town for the last 15 years. I've been a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary for the last 7 years. The importance of life jackets, the importance of actually behaving not just on the road, but on the water. It is actually about saving lives. For some of you you'll be very surprised or not, that the reality is 95% of adults are overly confident of their boating skills, but more importantly, of absolutely not wearing life jackets at any point of time. This is a national study that's been going on for the last 30 years, and there's been zero variation whatsoever of the actual wearing of life jackets. It's good to know that people less than 8 years old do carry and wear them, which is great. But it is actually about the consumption of alcohol, the misbehavior, operating a boat late at night, and all kinds of stuff. So we certainly appreciate the Coast Guard Auxiliary remains here to serve and to protect and to save lives and work with our partners and the towns and so forth. So we certainly appreciate the effort and do pay attention, if it's not during that week, maybe the rest of the year, to be a little bit better about boat safety. And don't forget, we offer classes. So the other thing also is education. So besides wearing life jackets, we can actually inspect your boat for free. You'll get a sticker, which means you get to bypass the DNR inspection most of the time. That means that will make your being on the way on water a lot expedited and fun. But the other thing is, education is a key part. So we offer this on Daniel Island, a partnership with the local flotilla. So again, we appreciate that very much. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I believe that concludes item 4 on our agenda. This brings us to item 5, approval of minutes from the January 25th.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. We have a second.
And I want to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Our clerk did a great job with the minutes, but in particular, the minutes for the retreat. We all, including myself, had a lot to say. 67 pages worth.
Yes.
But in doing that, there were a couple of scrivener's errors, and I've already provided them to her, but she did a great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you mentioning that, Councilman Chapman. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item 6 is public comment. If you will come forward to the lectern, we're going to go with 2.5 minutes tonight. I think that's on the clock. Please respect that so that all your fellow citizens have time to speak as well for the issues that they're here for. So We will begin with public comment. Mr. DeMore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We have several speakers tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go ahead and call 2 speakers up at a time. The first one to the podium, the next person standing on deck. Gladys Mujica, please come forward to speak with Jane Humphreys Callison a few feet back, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gladys Mujica. I live on 2195 Annie Laura Lane, and I am here today not only to support and stand with my fellow neighbors on Annie Laura Lane. We have a pretty big showing tonight. Everyone raise their hands, please. But to also raise concerns regarding the proposed plan for expansion of the transfer station. Currently, as it stands, our neighborhood is already suffering a great deal, and the expansion will only add to this problem. Just to name a few of the issues of the expansion problem, the expansion project will bring, there's congestion, traffic patterns to and from the facility have already impacted existing traffic flows, and the plans for expansion will only exacerbate this. Noise, the current noise levels are already a nuisance, and this is honestly an understatement. The site development plans are proposing to add an 18,000 square foot maintenance garage with 74 spaces designed for fleet trucks, fire trucks, among many other different commercial vehicles. The architects did plan for a 50-foot buffer, and the assumption here is that this buffer will help mitigate noise. It's highly concerning because that will not help. Connectivity concerns. There are concerns that eventually, because that space is there, to connect an entrance from the Gulf Annie Laura Lane side into the maintenance building rear parking. This will affect the safety of all our children on the street whose health is already in jeopardy because of the air pollution and dust winds coming from the dump. I can elaborate further, but we all know my time is limited. Rodents and pests, foul odors, dust winds, all coming from the station, already impacting our health and safety. So we ask that you take this into consideration. This station may have been a good idea in the 1980s, but it is 2022, and 40 years later, I think as a city, we need to do better. Thank you for your time.
Roberta Bowie on deck, please. Sorry. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Jane Humphreys Callison. My address is 2166 Annie Laura Lane. I'm the 8th home on the right side of Annie Laura. That is about midway on our street, and this trash recycle location is directly behind my home, my property. I hear noise from sun up to sundown, never ending. Typically, the first thing I hear every morning before 7 a.m. is the slow crank of big engines. Next, imagine the trash and recycle trucks pulling up to your home. Simultaneously, imagine those sounds of operations. We can hear all of that, the loud multi-operations of those vehicles. But wait, there are more, coming and going all day. Engines roaring and big tires throwing dirt, dust all day long. I want to remind you that they will not leave. There will not be a reprieve. They will be there all day. If you do not recognize the harm that this does, then you are not listening. We don't have that option. This should be enough for concern, but there's more, and it is worse than the sound, in my opinion. It is more damaging, even suffocating to living things. Let's just talk about the people today. Although there are animals, vegetation, homes, the interior and exterior environments of our homes, we're living in a dust bowl that has been created in the heart of North Mount Pleasant for an extended period of time. There are no filters. There is nothing that any filter can do with this type of environmental assault. Only space, time, and distance can do that. I'm not sure you realize the environmental hazard that has been created here. You can be proactive or reactive to the problem, but it will not go away. I have 2 pass-outs that are photos. May I hand those to the clerk?
Yes, ma'am. I'm happy to take them as well.
Okay, great.
Whatever's easy.
I'll do that. This is one set, and then that's another set. Okay, thank you so much.
Gene Garrett would be next.
Good evening. My name is Roberta Bowie. I live at 2178 Annie Laura Lane. I read in the paper recently where Mount Pleasant was considering evaluating the decibels and their effect on communities. In lieu of these facts, we would like to stress the effect of the waste plant noise on our community. The backhoes, which include loaders, dump trucks, and all kinds of trucks that make backup beep sounds, as well as a multitude of loud decibel noises. May I impress that a truck makes 180 decibels of noise every time it's cranked and run. The number of trucks that are located in this place is phenomenal. You all have heard them and you know what they sound like, the streets. But what about if it was in your backyard? You would have to wake up every morning to that's what wakes you up. The sounds of beep, beep, beep backing up. They're dirty. They're causing our children problems. The safe range of decibels for children, especially infants, is 50 to 60 decibels. Exposure to higher is considered unsafe for babies' sleep and can affect their sleep quality, sleep patterns, and development. Also, the pictures that some of you have, I took of my house. I humbly apologize. I do not have enough for each one. My fault. It won't happen again. That is particulate matter that we live with every day on Annie Laura Lane. You can clean your house. A week later, it's going to be right back. I have asthma. I have inhalers that I use twice a day, allergy shots that I get every 2 weeks. I have a beautiful paved porch that I can't sit at. So please consider this. It's not just for my health, it's for everyone's health. It is a huge problem for the environment.
Mr. Coker. Okay. Jim, come on up here. Mr. Coker, you're next.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Garrett. My family and I recently moved to the Mount Pleasant area after living in South America, working for the U.S. government there. We're preparing to move into a newly constructed home on Annie Laura Lane, near where an expansion to the transfer station is being proposed. Prior to agreeing to purchase a home in this area, we had no idea that this was even under consideration. It appears my property would be one of the most affected spots due to the activity of heavy trucks and equipment coming and going within 50 yards of our property line. As with many families, our financial health is tied directly to the value of our primary residence. If the town were to follow through on the expansion, we are very concerned that it would crush the value of our new home, wiping away years of hard, honest work. We're not independently wealthy. My husband and I come from humble circumstances, but we have achieved enough in life that has allowed us the opportunity to live in this beautiful community, but at a significant personal investment. We are particularly concerned about the potential for toxins seeping into our residential properties where children and pets will be playing. I don't know if the town has performed any environmental impact studies on this expansion, but I'm very worried that our neighborhood will be subjected to noise, fumes, smells, and other hazardous pollutants. Pollutants from landfills and waste treatment facilities are known to cause an increase in illnesses to the residents that live adjacently. Please accept this brief statement as my family's strong opposition to the expansion of the transfer station's operations. It just doesn't make sense. The area is heavily residential and it should not be put at risk. There has to be other options that will cause less harm. Additionally, as a completely different topic, I stand here today fully in support of the creation of the Recreation Advisory Committee. My 16-year-old daughter moved here mid-school year. We just got here in December, and as you can imagine, that was extremely I can't, not even unhappy qualifies what she was. Someone in one of her classes invited her out to play rugby. She went. She's a changed girl. She's happy. Please make sure that my daughter has a place to play rugby next year. I need that, and I need my house to be in a safe place. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Coker is next, and then Annalisa Jordan is after. Clark Coker.
Hi there, I'm Clark Coker, live at 769 Preservation Place. I'm just here to speak on behalf of the possible Recreation Advisory Commission. Just wanted to say that many of the athletes that you saw here today that brought home some state championships played rec sports right here nearby. It's no I guess it's publicly known that we need more field space, and a lot of those players played travel sports, and we're having a serious problem with that, with field space. So I would strongly recommend you look at passing the Recreational Advisory Commission. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan, please. Pat Gillespie.
Hi, my name is Annalisa Jordan, and I'm the broker in charge at Helena Coast. Jeannie, that just so eloquently spoke about moving here, is a client of mine. She's made me emotional. I take my job very seriously, and I love this town. And I really, really enjoy and am proud to help people from around the other states and places and inside of our own town relocate to homes, whether they're moving up or moving down. I was flabbergasted whenever this was brought to my attention that in the area where this particular site is, that I'm just dumbfounded with the lack of logic and the why this would be put there in an area that is growing with commercial and residential properties that would put these homes at risk. It's significant, these people make significant financial investments in their homes, and they make decisions whenever they make those financial decisions, and whenever a lack of thought seems to be put in place to put something like this and expand something like this that would so negatively impact the quality of life for these residents, it's upsetting. The growth of Mount Pleasant is on such an upward trajectory compared to where it has been over the years that we far surpass the need for what this facility would begin to how it would impact this particular neighborhood. It seems to me that we should, more prudent option would be to look at a much larger facility somewhere further out that would not impact residential homes of this nature. And I know that we're fast coming up on that being a very problematic thing to find property to do that. So it seems to me like the time to do that would be now. We don't see this town stopping its growth. People love it here, our climate, our quality of life, and we want to make sure that we make good decisions for the future so that we can continue to be proud of that. Thank you.
Orkita Hurd.
Good evening. My name is Pat Gillespie. I live at 2182 Andy Laura Lane. I'm here today to voice my concerns and the concerns of the Hurd Homeowners Association, which backs up to the city transfer station and future maintenance garage. We have objected to this situation previously in front of council and have been ignored. We are here again to make sure our voices are heard this time. The town has been an active partner in the development of our neighborhood with approval of annexations, lot splits, directing road improvements to Annie Laura Lane and Gulf Avenue. We now have 32 homes on our street, and we are all affected by the transfer station and will be more so when the maintenance garage is built. I purchased my lot 8 years ago. I was aware of the transfer station. I met with Mayor Swales at that time, and he told me the town was going to purchase property near Allendale and move the transfer station. The town did purchase the Berkeley Electric site north, but the community of 10 Mile heard about the transfer station and objected to it, and the town agreed not to transfer it, but the city still bought the maintenance building and the property. If this was a private development and not a public works project, it would not ever be considered because it would be classified as an industrial operation. This public works improvements does not belong behind a residential property. And the town knows this. They planned on moving it previously. I would also like to bring to your attention, the town of Mount Pleasant is the only municipality in Charleston County that operates a transfer station. I've spoken to other public works directors in the county, and they all had the same opinion of a transfer station. Why waste money moving trash twice? I implore council to stop this insanity and give our neighborhood the right to live in peace and not to have to endure the noise and pollution we live with daily. Thank you for your time.
We cannot allow outbursts, I'm sorry, because if we have cheers, we can also have boos, so please no outbursts. Thank you. Doesn't mean we're not listening though.
David Kalishman.
Good evening. My name is Orquita Hurd. I live at 2173 Annie Laura Lane and also own the property at 2175. And I just noticed on the second reading, my property will be annexed into the town of Mount Pleasant. One of the reasons that I'm annexing in is during the development of the Herb subdivision, we were responsible for getting wastewater service down Annie Laura Lane. At the time my house was built, that was not available. So now I hope with the second reading tonight that I will be annexed in and will be able to partake of that service. And I moved here in 1997, and many changes have occurred since then. What was a quiet, sparsely populated street is now filled with family homes with young children. Some of these homes have the trash transfer station practically in their backyard. This is creating problems, especially for the ones closest, but also to the whole neighborhood. The dust, noise, smell, and more recently, rodents are affecting our quality of life. We hope you will seriously consider closing or moving the transfer station. Thank you.
Denise Fugo.
Hello, Council. My name is David Kalishman, and thank you for hearing me today. My wife and I, Jessica Sweet, we recently moved from Washington, D.C. to Mount Pleasant to take advantage of this wonderful community, and we very much look forward to starting our family here, as do many residents in Annie Laura Lane. There are going to be a lot of babies coming very soon in that neighborhood. As you can understand, we are very concerned for the safety of our future children in this location. And fun fact, my wife and I actually happen to be consultants for the United States government on infrastructure projects. And we understand the data and decision that you guys are going to go through in deciding this. When it comes to decisions like this, my wife and I have found that taking a step back and answering two specific questions has been really helpful. Is it reasonable and is it responsible? Just taking a step back and asking those. And we find oftentimes that you will, through that process, you'll see that for a project like this, it does not meet that criteria. It is not reasonable. It is not responsible to be building this project there. But as you can see, all these people with all this evidence and reasoning and also proposing additional solutions. But I invite you to also just come and see for yourself why we're all here today. Come to our subdivision and look what it means to put this facility here, what it means to a 50-foot buffer, which is nothing. Please come and answer those two questions while you look at what we're talking about. So moving forward, I really do appreciate your time, and I really look forward to hearing your responses after coming to our subdivision at the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Laurel Smith.
Thank you. My name is Denise Fugo, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing for All Mount Pleasant. Our mailbox is at 1000 Johnny Dobbs, Suite 103. I'm here for basically two reasons. One, I'd like to make sure everyone knows that on May 17th, we're going to be celebrating Gregory Ferry Town, which is the first workforce housing development in Mount Pleasant. Understand that the average age of our buyers is 39, 83% of the buyers are women, and 33% are over the age of 50, which was a surprise to us. Secondly, Housing for All Mount Pleasant would very much like the opportunity to work with the town, the residents, and the engineers and architects necessary to make improvements to Faison Road. We have been blessed by working with 15 different developers. Many are local and some are regional and some are state developers. That's a very tricky piece of property because of the topography. We want to preserve the wetlands, of course. We want to make sure we preserve as many trees as possible. And we work with what's called the village principle, which actually looks to enhance any environmental opportunities you have in terms of water retention, perennial gardens, walking trails, and trees. Most of the developers we work with are only interested in parcels of land 5 to 15 acres. For that particular parcel, we believe we're going to need at least 3 developers to work with and to help provide resources to the town. We are committed to workforce housing for purchase, but understand that our hospitals, some of our hospitals are experiencing 70% turnover in positions where the pay is less than $70,000 a year. Which means if you need surgery in Mount Pleasant and there's no scrub nurses, your surgery is delayed. So we look to bring the recreation fields. We also think we need to bring, for the 43% of students that don't play sports, we think we need a community activity center. And we believe that we can provide really all the things that the town council mentioned in a plan. We will work with the residents to make sure we allay any fears and make it a community where people working in our community in Mount Pleasant actually can live. Thank you.
Kathy Widener.
Hi there. My name is Laurel. My husband. I also have a handout this evening, but I will be reading a letter on behalf of the neighborhood in regards to the transfer station. The town of Mount Pleasant, in deciding the site of the transfer station, did not involve the community. As per the EPA's waste transfer stations, a manual for decision making, the public must be a legitimate partner in the facility, citing process to integrate community needs and concerns and to influence the decision-making process. In order to legitimize the location of the transfer station, the community should be involved and be an integral part of an established committee to develop criteria to identify and evaluate potential sites. There are many residents of Annie Laura Lane who have lived here before the transfer station began operating. Many residents are affected and have been affected by the excessive noise, dust pollution caused by the trucks loading and unloading the refuge at the transfer station on Sweetgrass Basket Parkway since the transfer station began operating. The town council has been made aware of this via email during town council meetings since 2019. Nothing has been done about it. The excessive noise and dust pollution has caused the residents to stay inside their homes, not allowing them to enjoy their property. Some of these residents have young children who should be playing outside, but the children are afraid of excessive noise, telling their parents there are monsters in the woods. This is creating anxiety in young children. The dust that is kicked up when the trucks dump and then load up the refuge is carried by the wind and breathed in by the residents and settles on their property. This is unacceptable. It not only deprives them of the enjoyment of their property, but also depreciates the value of their property. It is understood that the town of Mount Pleasant has plans to build 3 walls around the refuge. This will not prevent excessive noise or dust, neither will pouring concrete on the ground. Additionally, it is also understood that the town of Mount Pleasant has plans to build a vehicle maintenance garage on Sweetgrass Basket Parkway, abutting homes on Annie Laura Lane. This will constitute additional nuisance. Each of these residents has a nuisance claim on the town of Mount Pleasant for which the injunction can be filed. We strongly suggest the town of Mount Pleasant review their plans for the transfer station on Sweetgrass Basket Parkway and immediately move the transfer station or shut it down. Thank you.
Okay. Perry Rourke.
Good evening, council members. And I am also a resident of Annie Laura Lane. And I'm reading a statement prepared by one of my neighbors who couldn't be here tonight. Her name is Angie Otochowski. Picture this: always checking the weather because you feel like it's thundering outside. The walls are shaking on the inside of the house. I'm starting to worry that the foundation of my home is slowly being ruined over time. Loud beeps, short pause. Nope, that is just a transfer station working 6 days a week, starting around 6:45 a.m. My mood is now dark. It is so obnoxiously loud. I have 3 small boys, and I can't even enjoy the simple pleasures of life, being able to let them play in peace in our backyard. My 7-year-old is now complaining to me about the loud noises. It's so infuriating to me because I have fought hard about this issue since 2019, and now it's 2022. The transfer station does not make a profit. Instead, it costs our town money. Now that I'm watching it cost my kids simple pleasures of playing outside their home. Again, I'm asking the town to make a change and help our quality of life here on Annie Laura Lane. This is Mount Pleasant. How much longer the recycling transfer station be the center of our town? Mount Pleasant is one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. More people equals more trash. Let's relocate it to the outside of our town. I have been doing so much research and learning that other cities do not have transfer stations this close to residents, and the situation with this one is very uncommon. I shouldn't have to put up with this. I'm also appalled that they have been given a budget of $30 million of our tax-paying money to expand. Thank you for your time.
John Wright.
Good evening, Perry Rourke, 2004 Brickhill Park. Congratulations to all of our state champions that were recognized tonight and their families. I want to thank the Health, Recreation, Events Committee for supporting and getting the Recreation Advisory Commission on the agenda tonight. This commission will be a great asset to this committee, the rec department, council, and most importantly, our residents. The members of the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee are by far the best group to appoint the members to this commission. Many of you received emails today from people that could not be here tonight. A lot of these people are attending high school games or also at tryouts. There's multiple tryouts going on for lacrosse and soccer tonight. In lieu of asking multiple people to stand up here and speak tonight, I would like to ask the residents in attendance tonight that support the formation of the Recreation Advisory Commission to please stand. We have a lot of residents in this town that support our recreation department. The commission will allow for collaboration with these residents and ultimately improve on the recreation experience for all residents. We ask that you all please vote yes for the formation of the Recreation Advisory Commission. Thank you.
Diane Lawrenson.
Good afternoon, John Wright. I live at 1576 Bloom Street and the beautiful Mount Pleasant. Mr. Mayor, thank you and distinguished members of council for my 4 minutes to speak this afternoon. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, first of all, for your attendance at the 1904 Rebuilding the Legacy concert in Orlando. It was a privilege to have you on the stage with Mayor Tecklenburg as well as Miriam Green, Mayor from Orlando. thank you, Mr. Demore, as well for the support of the town in that event. But I'm here for an item that's on your agenda tonight, and that item is the annexation on item 10 on the new business. As president of the African American Historic Settlement Community Commission, this has been an issue that we are thrilled that is on the agenda, where we know that overwhelmingly all you guys are going to vote in favor of it because it's the right thing to do. This is the right time. Annexation has been a problem. Well, not a problem, but it's been a conversation. But it's also been one that also kind of seems like it divides us in some ways. Well, this opportunity today that you're going to give the town of Mount Pleasant to amend that ordinance so that annexation will no longer be a problem is going to go a long way. It's going to go a long way in the settlement communities, but it's going to go a long way for environmental and health purposes to improve the quality of life for our residents here in Mount Pleasant. We know that annexation has been one that kind of has played the middle between two local governments. Well, we want to stop that. We want to make sure that both our local governments are working in conjunction with one another for the same purpose. We think that this is the right time, Mayor Haney, to have this item on the agenda, and we think this is definitely the greatest opportunity to fix something that's been long-standing for a very long time. So I appreciate your vote in support of this in advance, and I think it'll be an awesome thing for the town and for Waterworks and all those out there, and not only the settlement communities, but those that have a need for a sewer to fix that issue, and we don't have to address our environment in the future. But thank you so much, and I appreciate your time and your vote already in advance.
Good evening. I'm Diane Lauritsen, and I live at 705 Bradburn Drive. I'm in my 20th year as a commissioner for Mount Pleasant Waterworks, and I can't tell you what a pleasure it has been to serve the community on this board. It's an outstanding organization, and the employees are incredible and passionate, and we as commissioners are the same, and we work together so well, and we are working together so well with Mayor Haney and Jake Rambo, who serves on the commission as the water supply chairman. And as a result of our refresh of our strategic plan, which we undertook earlier this year, we came together and talked about our priorities, and we were unanimous in our interest in moving forward with the issue of providing wastewater services to some residents that don't presently have that. So this ordinance tonight is an outcome of that strategic planning and thinking, and really committing to working together, to continuing to work together with the town of Mount Pleasant. We have had a great partnership to provide economic incentives for people to tie on to sewer in the Stoughton community, and we're anticipating that we'll be able to do the same with the county to get their support to do some things. So this step that you're about to vote on tonight is part of the process to continue to move us in the direction of helping our customers and helping the environment. Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak who did not sign up? If you would come up, give your name, your address, 2.5 minutes, and when the town administrator tells you your time is up, please be respectful of that. Thank you very much.
Evening, Council. Thank you for time to speak. My name is Billy Collar. I live at 309 Cornbow Drive in Mount Pleasant, Hawkaw Point subdivision. Coming to speak with you on 2 items tonight. I'm the president of the Hawkaw Point Property Owners Association. I want to thank you all for entertaining the feasibility study for the underground power for those communities in Mount Pleasant that don't have that yet. And we stand before you united, and we will support and follow through on that effort. Please be advised of that and know that we'll be there for you. I also happen to serve as the president of the Lucy Beckham Athletic Booster Club and stand in full support of the Recreation Advisory Committee. I think it'd be a great idea incorporating not only all of the town functions, but reaching out to the school facilities that they have as well, to see if there might be some synergy there to be able to use both town and county education facilities to accomplish some of that expanded facility access. So, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Duncan Bryan. I live at 653 Bank Street, and I wanted to address planning agenda item 5, ordinance 22032, the rezoning request of 653 Bank Street. I was unable to make the May 2nd planning committee meeting to present, and I apologize for that. This request is based around the special R2 overlay district ordinance. Although my home is in this overlay district, my lot is currently zoned R1 and therefore not eligible for overlay classification. Being R1 means my current front setback is 30 feet from the property line, which begins at the end of right-of-way, which is an additional 15 feet from the road. So my setback is 45 feet total from the road. My home currently sits at 34 feet from the property line, or a total of 48 feet from the road, leaving only 4 feet to build a porch. I'm applying to rezone to take advantage of the R2 overlay district requirements to build a front porch. Our street has a nice sense of community, and it would be nice to be able to take advantage of that. We are limited in building additional outdoor living space in the backyard due to an in-ground pool the last owner installed, and we are a growing family who would like additional outdoor living space to make our current home size work. We feel as adding a front porch will allow us to grow and remain in place of our current home as opposed to having to sell and move. Finally, I wanted to quickly address a few comments, concerns from the May 2nd Planning Committee meeting. There were comments, concerns about the porch being 15 feet from the road and basically taking up our entire front yard. That concern's invalid because according to zoning rules, it could be no closer than 30 feet from the road. Honestly, I don't think we would even build our porch up to the 15 feet property line setback or the 30-foot road setback. There were also comments that we're just looking to knock down our house. I can tell you we're not looking to knock down our house. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm looking for the ability to add a front porch. There was concern about that I'm applying to rezone in order to subdivide my house. If you read the staff report from Peter Stone, you will see that nor myself or future owners, it's not possible at any time today or in the future to subdivide my lot due to the width of the lot. There was a comment about our home being fully renovated and adding a front porch would take away from the current appeal of the house. We had to redo our siding due to the previous owner's neglect causing water damage. A front porch has always been a dream of ours, and we're just forced to deal with other updates first. I can promise you the look of our home will stay consistent. The porch will be appropriately sized. And there was concern that, this would set a precedent with other lots rezoning from R1 to R2 in this district. 10 lots have already rezoned, one around the corner that was rezoned and subdivided. So at the end of the day, we're really just looking to be able to build a front porch and access further than that 4 feet. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Chris Colson. I live at 2609 Ringstead Lane. I'm here to voice my support for the Recreation Advisory Commission. I've been to the committee meetings several times, but I represent Wanda Rugby Club. We're a 501c youth sports organization. We're no longer a club underneath Wando High School, so we collect dues, and the majority of which goes to pay CCSD to lease a field at Carrier Middle School, which you may know does transition to town control, or may have already transitioned to town control, and will eventually be turned into a baseball field. We've definitely experienced this season how much pressure there is here in Mount Pleasant to get a rectangular field. Any given Saturday morning, I don't know who's going to be squatting on that Carrier field, be it soccer, lacrosse. We've leased it. Others squat. We would likely squat too. There's just so much pressure. I think what the Recreation Advisory Commission helps us do is all work together as citizens of the town, representing our diverse sports interests, and really work with the committee to, with whatever resources the town currently has, but then we can also be advocates for any future resources that any sort of referendum, may make available. Future sports fields, future rectangular fields. I think that something like the Recreation Advisory Commission really goes a long way towards that. What to say? Congratulations to the lacrosse team. Our girls program, our girls part of our club, we have 30 boys, 30 girls, almost all of which live in Mount Pleasant. Our girls will be representing Mount Pleasant and our club at the Rugby High School Nationals in Cleveland, Ohio in 2 weeks. So I hope to have them back here and you able to congratulate them on their victory. But even if not, I think you've already heard one parent, voice the passion that her daughter, a rugby player, has. You might call this a club sport, a travel sport. I don't know. I mean, we're a volunteer organization. None of our coaches are paid. We do it out of love for the sport and love for what we see it do in the kids. So I really hope that you will back this Recreation Advisory Commission. I think all of us here see it as something that can help the town, and we can be partners in it in a good way to sort of represent the citizenry and help sort of push efforts for the more rectangular fields that we know we all need. Thank you.
How are y'all doing? Trent Kirk. I live at 567 Creole Retreat. I'm also on the board for the Molasses Creek. I came because, as most of y'all know, Dominion's doing a lot of tree trimming around the neighborhood and everywhere else, and it was brought to our attention that several of the crepe myrtles along Muirhead are going to be completely removed. And over the last, I guess, 10, 15 years that I've lived there, they do it every 5-year cycle, and they just usually top them out, but they've decided this time to completely cut them down to the ground. So I'm asking for y'all's help with that. And I've spoken with Eddie Bernard a couple times, and I'm going to see if I can get his assistance to help us save the trees. Seems like the easy fix is just to top them out. And then that's also brought to my attention that part of the Phase 3 funding that's already in place to carry the lines underground from Muirhead to Wingo Way comes down to the first pole on Muirhead. So it seems like just not common sense, and I know it's all money, but to take it down a little bit further to the marsh at Molasses Creek, which would serve Hobcall, I know, who is also doing this funding study, or trying to push for the funding study. Molasses Creek, Braymore, and Ion is kind of a corridor to the back of that neighborhood, or to those neighborhoods. So I guess that's really my main push, is to look for that assistance to see if there's any way to get that funding as part of Phase 3, which I believe is already funding. I think there's additional money as part of the franchise fee would be one thing, and then mainly would be the first thing to see if we can just save the crepe myrtles that are along Muirhead versus having them completely cut down. So I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Hi, thank you all for allowing us to speak. We weren't here in time to sign up. I really appreciate it. My name is Liz Hires. I live at 571 Creole Retreat, and I just want to echo what Trent just said. For years, we have been in our house for, I guess, almost 14 years now, and, the traffic has increased with developments going on through Hobcall, and those trees have shielded our houses from the traffic as well as from the noise. And so, in the last 5 years, or the last 20 years, they've been continuing to chop them, or top them rather than chop them down. So we're just trying to understand the rationale of actually completely removing all the trees down the road, and would ask for your support, as Trent mentioned, to extend Phase 3 of the underground project to go through to the creek and just bury those lines. From what we understand, what Dominion said was if we can get the town's support on extending that project in the near future, they would reevaluate cutting the tree or removing the trees. And the other concern is just with the developments that have happened on Mathis Ferry as well as down Muirhead. There's a constant flow of water, the storm drain water that goes through the neighborhood. So the other concern is removing these trees would also potentially cause additional damage to the road and other structures for the water. So we do ask that you all help us to get those trees saved if possible. So thank you.
Okay, that appears to be everyone. I see a lot of families here. I know we're from Annie and Laura Lane. Can we just clarify one issue between legal or town administrator? We do have 2 annexations on the agenda tonight that are on Annie and Laura Lane. For the benefit of everybody that may not have been at the committee, does either of those have anything to do with the transfer station? Those are residential. Okay. And there is no transfer station item on the agenda, which means we're not allowed to discuss or vote on it.
Correct.
Okay. So for those that want to get home to their families or get supper, just wanted you to know that. Glad you're here for your input, but other than the two annexations, there's no Annie Laura Lane or transfer station issue on the agenda this evening. So just wanted to let you know. This will conclude the public comment portion of our agenda. That's item 6. Item 7 is consent agenda items. There are no consent agenda items. Item 8 is planning new business.
Motion to approve 1, 2, 3, and 4. Second.
Okay, the motion is to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are all annexations. We have a second. We're in discussion. I will note that all 4 of these were recommended for approval unanimously by the Planning Committee. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4 are approved.
First readings of ordinance numbers 22028, 22029, 22030, and 22031.
Okay. Ms. Reed, item 5, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. All right. So this is a request to rezone a property that's currently R1, low density, to R2, which is our next level, low density residential district. It is at 653 Bank Street, as seen here. And this is a little hard to see. There we go. This map isn't showing up very well, but you can kind of see along Bellevue. I don't know why it's not showing up very well here, but along Bellevue, on this side of Bellevue, so here, this is all R2, and this area here is R1. And then you have R2 over here again. And then on the next map, you can see. So you can see that the property in question is within the R1 zoning district as far as the base zoning, but it does lie within the special R2 overlay district, as you can see here. The boundaries along Center Street and Royal Avenue. And so the request before you is, as the applicant mentioned during the public comment period, is to rezone this property to R2 so that those special R2 overlay district development standards can be employed. And really the only difference is if your underlying is R2, you can employ that special R2 overlay district. And that was adopted back in 2007 to kind of address those older houses that were kind of set back a little bit to allow them to really to put front porches on. That was kind of the intent of that special R2 overlay district. And so if your underlying is R2, as the request is being made, that you can employ that special R2. And so instead of a 30-foot front setback, you would have a 15-foot front setback. There was a similar request in 2015 around the corner on Fairmont, and that was actually to subdivide. And as the applicant said, this property in question, even if it were zoned R2, it would not meet the minimum dimensional standards to be subdivided, but it would allow them to do that front setback with a porch at 15 feet. And this kind of is from our GIS site, and what you can do is kind of see the building envelopes. And so you can kind of see how the streetscape is. There's actually a house that's not showing up here across the street that is built pretty close up to the street. But you can kind of see how the streetscape is. And then this is the house in question. And so if you look down Bank Street, you can kind of get an idea of how that streetscape is. But that's the request before you. As I said, it's not to subdivide. It wouldn't meet those requirements. It's so that the owner
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. We're now in discussion. Yes, ma'am.
So the planning committee's reasoning behind this was the thought that there was the possibility of subdivision. So I think having that taken off the table for me changes my mind.
I was going to ask what the reason for the 4-0 vote was. So this was not clear at committee?
At committee, it was not clear that this property could not be subdivided. And so our concern was that it just wasn't clear that we tried to see if there was an alternative route to get to a porch without a rezoning. And then I think ultimately decided that because of the possibility of subdivision in addition to a second home on the lot, that we were going to vote against it. But hearing now at council meeting that it's not possible really kind of takes away that argument.
Right. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Moore?
First reading ordinance number 22032.
All right, and this next one is similar to a request that's under your old
Motion to
business.
approve.
Second. And just for clarity, are we on item 6?
Item 6.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve item 6, and we have a second. We are in discussion. Any discussion? The committee recommended approval by 4-0. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
First reading 22033.
Thank you. This brings us to old business, section B, item 1, please.
Move to approve items 1 through 4.
Second.
We have a motion to approve items 1 through 4 and a second. We are in discussion.
Mayor, on the discussion, there's several of us council members who are somehow locked out of microphones.
Maybe others have to turn theirs off, maybe?
Now it's on. That might have been it. Okay, thank you.
If you're not speaking. Did you have a?
Sir, I just wanted to make sure
Right.
for the clerk's benefit
Yeah.
that we have microphones.
Sounds good. This reminds me of when we were kids and we all got walkie-talkies for the first time. You know, can you hear me in the next room? All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, 3, and did I get this right? And 4?
Mm-hmm.
And 4. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, items 1, 2, 3, and 4 in section B, old business, are approved.
Final readings of ordinances 22023, 22024, 22025, and 22026.
This brings us to item 5.
Yes, sir. And as you recall, the applicant requested a deferral last month to this month. They
Move
have
to approve.
requested one more deferral. Yes, sir.
Do you move to approve or defer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, then move to defer. Move to approve the deferral.
Okay. The motion to defer.
Motion to defer.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is deferred. All right, section 9, committee action items. Item A is accommodations tax advisory committee, which would be approval of funding recommendations. Would that be you, Mr. Eichfond?
That would be me. I can read what went on at the advisory committee meeting. The accommodations tax advisory committee met in April to review applications and make recommendations for council's consideration. The current balance available is $150,000. Council has received a summary of the request and the accommodations tax advisory committee's recommendation for funding 3 requests totaling $10,875. If council accepts the committee's recommendations, this will leave $139,125 balance. As such, I move that council approves the funding recommendations totaling $10,875 for the Mount Pleasant Symphony concerts for $6,875, the South Carolina Surf Soccer Club Men's Select Shootout for $2,000, the South Carolina Surf Soccer Club Women's Select Shootout for $2,000. And I also want to thank the team at Mount Pleasant for redoing, Ms. Sims and John for redoing the scoring. They did an excellent job making it easier for the committee. So.
All right, so that is from the committee.
Yes, sir.
And it does not require a second. We would be in discussion. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. It seems surprising to me that so few organizations submitted for ATAC funds, because I feel like historically there's always been a dozen to 20 organizations that have submitted. So I was wondering about how, was it advertised, or was there any explanation for that? And when is the next round so that we can advertise it?
Absolutely. So how our process works is we actually have 2 separate funding cycles, one in the fall, one in the spring, and we did that deliberately because of the event planning cycle. Folks typically will get to a certain point where they know how much money they need to apply for at a certain point in the calendar year. So we broke it down between spring and fall funding events. So this is our fall funding cycle, and historically this has always been significantly lower because there are far fewer special events in the fall timeframe. The spring, you're going to see about 15 to 20 applicants come forward. Those are regularly occurring things like the Cooper River Bridge Run, Low Country Oyster Festival, the Charleston Food and Wine, all of those major events that you're used to hearing about. So all in all, we actually have significant amount of events, probably around 25, which is quite a bit. There's always a larger request than we have funding for. So we do advertise it throughout direct mailings. We put it on all of our social media. We issue press releases, and it is well received. We receive quite a few inquiries, several of which just unfortunately per state law don't qualify for ETAC funding. But certainly if there's recommendation from council as to other folks that we need to speak to or advertise to, staff would certainly be amenable to getting words to them.
Thank you. And then one other question. Are there events that are already sort of pre-funded through the ATAC dollars, such as like Children's Day or certain town events that we put forth that are kind of already embedded in that don't get voted on each time?
Yes. So the town's special events, things like Blessing of the Fleet and Children's Day, those are all already allocated in the budget that you all receive. This committee receives a line item of funding to their discretion to allocate out to non-town hosted special events.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Just one question though. The Mount Pleasant Symphony concerts, are those concerts that are held out here?
No, sir. They're historically they've been held at Christ Church. I understand from Mr. Mandola that after this set of concerts, they are going to be looking for a new concert location. Historically, they have been held at Christ Church, and they are free and open to the public.
Any other? Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman.
Could you give me the rationale for the $0 that the committee recommended for Housing for All Mount Pleasant Settlement Community Tours?
Yes, sir. So that was a new request this year that the committee received. They were incredibly supportive of the project. However, it is still in the committee's eyes at early stages in planning. Things such as the transportation logistics, the dates of the actual tours, letters of commitment from the various settlement communities, various components still need to be sorted out. And so they provided feedback to staff during the process and asked that we provide that feedback back to Housing for All Mount Pleasant. And once those details are sorted out, to encourage them to reapply at that point in time.
So they do have an opportunity to reapply in our next funding cycle with correcting those issues.
Yes, sir. I believe if all that information were provided, the committee would be very supportive of their request.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the recommendation from the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Recommendation is passed unanimously. All right, item B, Economic Development Committee, discussion and possible action regarding potential uses for Faison Road property. I will turn it over to Councilmember Hyde.
Well, once again, this came out of committee that we need direction from council regarding how we should move forward with the property, or if we should. There's been some interest, in the property, but until we make a decision of what we want to do with it, or if we want the town to spend any funds investigating what can be done, the council needs to make a decision. It keeps getting on our agenda for discussion, but we can't move forward until we really have a consensus from council as to what to do with the property. Mr. Chapman made the motion to bring this back to council, so he might want to add.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Having read through all 67 pages of the retreat minutes, there was a lot of discussion during the retreat of various possibilities for this site. I was very adamant in my suggestions that this would be a great place for workforce housing. We use some of the highlands for that, as well as a place for extending our senior center to this part of Mount Pleasant. I think those are two good ideas. As you know, I did not vote for buying this property, but now that we have it, Now that we have it, we need to use it for economic development because that's theoretically what was up for discussion when we were buying it. So I made the motion to bring this back to take a look at, to help our staff figure out what we want to do. There's been discussion to leave it alone, leave it like it is. There's been discussion to use it for ball fields, which I know we need lots of ball fields, but I would not be in favor of that because the lighting right adjacent to the airport runways would not be a good idea. I got a better idea for ball fields, and that's a referendum. But finally, it's not fair to keep talking about this without giving staff some direction. And we haven't done that. We have not done that. And for them to have to develop plans or whatever for something that may never be built is unfair and costly. So that's kind of where I am with it, and I'm sure my fellow council members have ideas themselves.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Santos first, and then Mr. Akefano.
Well, you know, I've said it many, many times. This piece of property should also be able to generate revenue for the town. And I think by having fields out here, we continue to keep it as green space. It will generate a tremendous amount of revenue for us through accommodations tax, sales tax, hospitality tax, without any major expenses to us. We already have staff that maintain our fields and line the fields, cut the grass, things like that. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity. I know before we had a meeting with our administrator and saw a drawing of a building on here as well that could host a senior center as well as a YMCA, and then on the top of it, a restaurant with glass all around it so that parents could come and their children could play soccer and games and practices and all while they were upstairs maybe having some lunch or something. But this piece of property could generate a tremendous amount of revenue for the town. And not only that, but you know, we talked about being able to provide opportunities for kids to be able to get out and be active and exercise and things like that. When you give a child an opportunity, give them a ball. I don't care if it's a soccer ball, football, baseball, basketball. They're going to be out. They're going to be exercising. And I think this is a great opportunity for us, especially since our other facility is right down the street, to be able to put on some really good tournaments, to be able to generate a tremendous amount of revenue for the town. And not only that, but give our children an opportunity to have some excellent facilities to be able to play in. You saw today the kids, high school students that were here in front of us today, how well they've been doing, and I think we need to continue that trend, because when they're out on the fields, when they're getting exercises like this, they're not getting into trouble. And you know, they're really are working hard toward going to college and being able to play athletics in college. And I think if we can develop this field, even if we have somebody that wants to come and we want to do a long-term lease on it to let somebody else develop it into soccer, lacrosse fields, or whatever, it's still revenue for the town, and it's still helping our children stay fit and you know, keeping them out of trouble, because they're going to be out here on the fields playing ball like we did growing up. So that's just my opinion, and I think that's what we need to do. Is this needs to be an opportunity for us to be able to put some things out here, especially rectangle fields for our youth to be able to, like I said, exercise and play sports, and also generate a tremendous amount of revenue for the town.
Mr. Akefano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that when I came on council, this property was already purchased, and I know the original intents were either economic development and or recreation space. I think we are confusing staff and possibly confusing the citizens that paid for this property. I think that we need to find the best and highest use for this property. I know I don't have the knowledge to understand what the best highest use for this property is. I've asked Mr. Demora at Economic Committee and at the last council meeting if he could put this out to the public and private sector. Thought that maybe that would have a bad look to it, with people coming in and spending time and money to say what they could do with the property, and then we decide to leave it as green space. I do and would like, I don't know if I have the ability to make a motion to have staff retain a consultant to develop concepts based on the uses mentioned here on the screen and by council. And I think that if we use a consultant, that we will have better direction and allow the professionals to look at the land and possibly go to the private sector for that. Can I make a motion, Mr. Bagley?
Yes, sir.
So I make a motion to have staff retain a consultant to develop concepts based on the uses mentioned here on the screen and by council.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. I would like to add quickly, if I may, that a lot of our citizens want to see leadership from the town by not filling and building. And we have a letter from a consultant from back when we were in the process of purchasing, and it came up very late in the process, that the majority of this property is wetlands and would require fill and build permits to do something on it. This is an issue that filling and building is causing an issue all over, and I don't think our citizens want us to do that at all. But we know there's highlands here, so I would like to ask Mr. Iacofano if in your motion, would you include a delineation of wetlands so we know how much highland we actually have to work with and how much of that would actually be filling and building in wetlands?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
I'll add that to my second.
Okay. So that would include a wetlands survey, both current and after the current wetlands disturbance permits would expire. Thank you. I appreciate you amending it that way. Thank you, Bev. Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo.
To follow up on your comments, Mr. Mayor, don't we already have a wetlands delineation survey? Wasn't that part of the due diligence? What was delineated pre us looking into it, which it expires in 2025 or 4, something like that, and then what it would be? Isn't that already included in the
information we have now that was prepared for the purchase as part of the due diligence? Is 38 acres, and it flips under each scenario. So currently, under the rules that were originally passed with Carolina Park, it's 33 acres of highland and 5 acres of lowland. It flips when the permit expires at the end of 2025 if it's not extended.
But that was a letter estimate, I think. I don't think that was an actual survey, but either one, if it was, yeah.
And then just further comment, I'll be voting no on this motion just because until there's a consensus from council, hiring a consultant to do what? I mean, just to present us a number of random options, but there's no consensus here. These consultants in the development world are expensive. I mean, this is not cheap stuff. And so if there was a consensus, even if I didn't agree with it, I would vote for that motion. But I just can't vote to spend money recklessly when there's no consensus from this body.
Ms. Corley, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I go back with what I've been saying for a couple of months now, but there's absolutely nothing wrong. Conservation and making a statement as a council that we are not going to participate in any sort of fill and build. And I think we all know that we do need field space and we need rectangular fields, but we do have the rifle range property coming along, and fields still need parking. So it's not just like we're just going to be able to put a field out there and not give people parking spaces. And we're talking about a lot of money with that as well. I think the referendum is going to give us a good feel as to what residents are thinking. But I do feel, I'm certain that this is what Mount Pleasant residents would want. If they really understood what was at stake, they would understand that we need a place, especially out there, for water to go to. Faison Road is just a devastated area after all those, what do they call the apartments, the retirement communities went out there. And also I believe there's plans for that area to be developed with some cool stuff anyway. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe not, but I heard that was coming to that area. So again, I'm ready to make a motion to keep it green.
All right, we have to, on the motion that's on the floor, yeah. Let me add one thing just as it helps this. As the ex officio member of the Aviation Authority, I did ask the Director of Operations if ball fields would be, he does not issue permits, so I need to choose my words carefully, but it would be a hazard to aviation to have. So if council were to decide to do ball fields there, the chances are they would not be lighted ball fields. This is right next to a runway, and that's not something, I don't even know that we would get it permitted. I didn't ask the question that far, but the Director of Operations did say that would be a grave concern to the Aviation Authority, so I think they would probably oppose lighted ball fields on that property.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
So I like the idea of a consultant, but I agree with Mr. Randall in that I think it's a little premature because right now the possibilities are infinite, and we as a council have not narrowed those possibilities down. I think given the mayor's information about the aviation, that I think that takes ball fields off the table. We have other spaces in our community for recreation, Rifle Range Park, and as the referendum potentially moves forward, the citizens will decide whether or not we get more ball fields based on their choosing to support the referendum. I think that given that it's right next to a runway, I feel like that takes housing off. For me anyway, it takes housing off of the table just because I feel that people do not want to, you wouldn't actively choose, I mean, I don't know, maybe you would, to choose to live next to an airport, like directly next to an airport. I think that the original purpose of this property was for economic development, and I think that a combination of economic development usage plus open space and wetland preservation could be potentially very positive. A mixture of both of those things. Take the Highlands, convert it into economic development, and then get a consultant or you don't need to get a consultant. Just put an RFP out to the community based on combination of open space, wetlands, and economic development, and see what people bring to the table, and then let staff go from there to make a choice as to what is the best option. I think, given how the state owns Patriots Point and does 99-year leases, I think that's something that we could potentially do with a developer, is a 99-year lease where they take over the management of the property and build out however they would like, but the town still retains long-term ownership over it, just like the state retains ownership over Patriots Point. So I will not be supporting the consultant at this time, but I do have a motion ready for after we've had that vote, if it's appropriate.
Other discussion?
Yes.
If there's no one else who is there anyone who has not spoken the first time yet under Robert's rules? Right, I'll go to Mr. Santos and then Mr. Chapman.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you look to the right there, you see nothing but housing complex right here. So the idea of it being too close to the airport, if you go down further to our facility now, we're even closer to the airport with our existing facility that has lights. There's a school right there that's built right by the airport. So, saying that this is too close to the airport, to me is ridiculous. There's other places that are much more closer, to the airport than this will be. So I don't think that holds water. Just my opinion.
Mr. Chapman.
Mayor, I'll kind of piggyback on Council talking about housing. If you go out to Park West, there are townhouses built right adjacent to the airport. So that I agree. I think Councilmember Santos is a non-starter for me. I think we have been talking about doing something for people who try to work in our community, try to live in our community and work. We've got one project we've done. That's it. This would be a perfect place on the Highlands to do something, and I think Housing for All could help us with that. So, you know, while I'm not necessarily at this time for going out for a consultant to come in and tell us what to do, I think we could have workforce housing with some recreation like this extended senior center and maybe a restaurant on top. That sounded good. But I think we need to do something here to help us with some issues that we've just left out there and have not done a good job for our constituents.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Whitley.
So, taking into consideration what Mr. Chapman said, it is possible in the RFP for Housing for All to submit an RFP to the town along with any other developers that would like to submit an RFP. We do not have a moratorium against the building of workforce housing. The property is zoned, I think, for economic development, so there is an opportunity for that to be a part of any submission, and then whichever one sort of is the best and highest usage of that land would then be the winner. And so I think that this is there's an opportunity there for through the RFP process with some parameters to get really good proposals for the usage of the land.
Mr. Ickfon.
Mr. Demore, I just refresh my memory. I brought it up at committee to put it out for like an RFP, like Ms. Whitley was talking about, for somebody coming free, 5, 10 companies. I also mentioned at the last town council meeting for the same thing. That didn't get any traction. So I kind of brought up for it to be free, by the way. So if we can put it out there like that, but I thought that the look was going to be that, hey, we're putting this out here for somebody to put their best foot forward on what they can do with the property, and then all of a sudden 3 years later it's still sitting empty. It could be a bad look for the town of Mount Pleasant to do business in, that we're asking people to come out with proposals, yet we're not doing anything with those proposals. So the takeaway is to, and I do not enjoy spending money, is to actually use somebody to come up with that for us, to give us the data, tell us how much is it going to lease for ball fields, how much is it going to, what is the benefit of it staying wetlands. So those different things is what I was looking for. If we can get RFPs and they're out for free, then have at it. And if my motion gets denied, which I hate for it to happen, and it's sparked some more motions, then let's rock and roll. But let's just do something with this property, because we're sitting on the people's money right now, and we can't do that.
The motion before us has to do with hiring a consultant to give us the highest and best use for the Faison property. I think we're at the end of discussion. We'll try to do this with a voice vote. The clerk is looking. Would you prefer okay, roll call? All right. The motion is to approve a consultant to guide us into the highest and best use. And help me if I'm not, I want to make sure I'm saying that right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Ritchie? No. Mr. Ritchie votes no. Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley?
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman?
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley?
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Ms. Hyatt?
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Mr. Ickfona?
Yes.
Mr. Ickfona votes yes. Mr. Rambo?
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mayor Haney?
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
All right, motion fails 7-2. Is there another motion?
Yes, I'd
ma'am.
like to make a motion that we direct staff to draft an RFP for the Faison Road property development options with a narrowed scope of a combination of open space wetland preservation and economic development inclusive of workforce housing.
All right.
With that being a possible component.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Would you say that again about the wetlands preservation?
Yes, so it would be the direction for the RFP would to be utilizing a combination of open space, wetland preservation, and economic development with the option of workforce housing.
Okay, is that clear to everyone?
Yeah, could I just?
We need a second.
Oh.
I seconded.
All right, we have a second. Yes, Ms. Corley, we're in discussion.
No, you know, we go back to, I know Mr. Acufano keeps talking about residents' perception about what we're doing with this and what they're getting for their money, but I, again, go back to stating that that's a strategy that a lot of large towns use to keep the high livability aspect up, is they buy land and they designate it for green space and give water a place to go to. So again, I think our residents would want us to keep that space green. So I'm going to vote no on that one.
May I ask, I'll jump in here, may I ask a question? Would you amend your motion to include preservation of green space? There are people who plan.
I think that's, yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, well, I took it as develop it, but preserve some green space. I mean, to preserve it. In other words, not just leave it there as vacant property, but perhaps an eco-friendly boardwalks or something to where people actually interact or in a passive way as a nature park, sure, which would also preserve wetlands. Because what I heard, and I think Ms. Corley heard, was the only options are development with some preservation, but preservation itself could be one of the options that someone helps us plan.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
I will amend my motion, so it could be, some combination or focus on open space. But I think what I want to make clear is that I wouldn't want someone to come back with 36 acres of economic development park. You know, the open space wetland preservation must be a large component of it, if not the entire component.
I hear
but
you.
But my only, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what RFP comes back with, because I don't see where the money comes from to actually create the open space wetland preservation.
I believe there are groups, and from a former profession with a conservation, I believe there may be groups that would be interested in making a proposal to show us. Great. I'll give you an example. Francis Beidler Forest, that is very sensitive wetlands, but there is a way through properly built boardwalks and things that people can experience it, which is what I was thinking along the lines of Ms. Corley's thing. So I just want to make sure your motion allowed for that.
Absolutely.
Right. And your second is your second will include that. Okay. Mr.
Yes.
Rambo.
So when we first purchased this property, it first came up as economic development, and it's why I voted against it to begin with, is because we have to be very, very careful as a government entity when we start jumping in the economic development game, because there is lots of economic development, lots of new businesses that are going in all over this area who don't have the benefit of the government buying their land for them and leasing it back. And those people are then going to compete against other private businesses who purchase their own land without government interference. And I don't know. I think we have to be very careful about merging those two. There's a lot of public-private partnerships that have happened over the years. The IOP Marina being one of them that turned into a disaster. And so I'm just not for that at all.
I just have
yes, you have the floor.
So you feel comfortable that if that motion passes, we could get a couple of RFPs that would mainly concentrate on the conservation piece of this?
I feel comfortable that we can go out there and get some. Not all of me, but that we can go out there and get some. And if it involves someone helping us plan something there that's along the preservation lines that I would like to see, then I can support this motion because it is included. Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking to Mr. Rambo's concern, you know, I put it out there on there's a Mount Pleasant Mommy group about what people need in the community, and one of the things they talked about was mixture of uses, like space for teenagers, you know, things to do that are inexpensive. And one of the things so many people said, like an old-timey roller skating rink. Now, the problem is that the real estate in Mount Pleasant is so darn expensive that it's not sustainable economically in the traditional market for a roller skating rink, a bowling alley to survive in Mount Pleasant. But with the support of the town to provide something like that for the community, I mean, we are providing a space and access to like that. That is something that could be in an RFP of providing a space for teens and the community to come to. That's not going to be, you know, that wouldn't survive otherwise. We're supporting mom and pop businesses. I mean, there's I think that the expense of doing business in Mount Pleasant, this is an opportunity to incubate and to support and to create economic development in our community that would be positive and provide amenities to our citizens that wouldn't otherwise be there. Whether that's a boardwalks for a beautiful walking space and bird watching, or a roller skating rink that gives our teens somewhere to hang out as like a club type of space. So I think, and whether or not there's mixed use where there's housing above that provides workforce housing to our first responders. I think that when you put this RFP out there and sort of make it clear that the town is looking for something that's going to benefit the community, I think that there will be an answer to that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Forgive me, Ms. Whitley, I need to ask council to clarify the motion because the motion contains economic development, which are businesses that can locate anywhere. And we've moved to another category. And as the person responsible for crafting the RFP or RFQ, we've got to have some clarity and some narrowness with it. Otherwise, it's going to be so broad, we're going to receive various and almost unwieldy amounts of requests and proposals.
Yeah.
So if we can narrow the motion where we can digest it at the staff level.
So in what capacity would you like it narrowed?
Well, we specifically mentioned economic development, which has one specific definition, and now we're talking about amenities for the community, which is something different. Are we meaning amenities for the community to replace economic development, or is it amenities for the community is in addition to economic development, wetlands preservation, option for workforce housing?
Well, I guess for me, I think that there's overlap between economic development and amenities for the community. That's kind of how I was viewing it, but perhaps I'm incorrect on that. So, but I think that keeping it to the open space, wetland preservation, economic development, with as broad a definition as that can go, with an incorporation potentially of the workforce housing.
Did that answer the question? Or are we back where we started?
I don't know how to answer that question. This is a very difficult request to the public to construct as it stands today. The broad nature of it is we're going to be inundated with requests from potential offerers, and at least at this point, if council could help narrow it a little further, we'll have a better opportunity to answer those questions when they're brought to us.
Okay, Mr. Wanda.
I guess so. Ms. Whitley, I appreciate your comments, and Mr. Demore kind of hit on exactly where my head was, because I was thinking economic development, which again are businesses that can be relocated anywhere, large corporations, things like that. It's really, for-profit type corporations. I was not, in my mind, saying no to a potential bowling alley, mom and pop partnership, something like that. But I think it just goes back to, until this body has a consensus on what they would like to see between all these different options, I think it's really hard for us to do anything.
Let me see if I can.
Ms. Chapman, yes.
If I can try to add some definition, if you will, on the property. What I would like to suggest is that we take the highland, and that highland being after 2025, what the issues are with the wetlands versus the highland. Leave the wetlands for the open space and green space, and take the highland, which might be 5 acres, and do the housing for all idea and potential economic development. That might make it a little more specific for the RFPs we're going to go out for. Is that something reasonable for everybody? Because I don't think we want to. I think we want to leave the wetlands and the open space there, but the highland, which may be 5 acres, is that about what eventually is, Mr. DeMore?
Yes.
About 5 acres. Leave the highland for the economic development part versus and housing for all. That's what we would get back. People looking at the wetlands area, for the open space, and whatever we can get from groups that might want to help improve that, and then the highland for the economic development part with housing, workforce housing. Is that something people could get
Question.
their hands on?
Are you talking about 5 acres including parking? So 5 acres total, no more.
I'm saying 5 acres for whatever economic development, housing for all, and then the open space being in the wetlands area, where we might get some interest for people to help give us park space and or walkways or whatever. But if you give specifics like that, I think we'll get a better package.
May I ask to make the clarification that we talk about what would be highlands under the 2025 new regulations,
that's
so
exactly
that
what I'm
we're not filling and building anything that would be defined as wetlands.
Correct.
Even in the future.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our very next item is going to be discussion and possible action to form a Recreation Advisory Commission. I would like to see us at least, it's been good discussion, but I think we ought to at least hold off and allow these folks to get organized and give us their opinion as well. We're adding this commission to advise us on recreation, and I'd like to get their opinion on what they think. I mean, whether or not this could be used as ball fields, and when you talk about economic development, you're talking about bringing in a lot of revenue when you have tournaments out here. So there's certainly a lot of economics that come into it, whether they're coming from restaurants or hotels or whatever. There's a lot of revenue flowing to the town, but I think we ought to give them an opportunity, since we're getting ready to vote to form this recreation committee, give them an opportunity to weigh in on this as well.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Corley.
Mr. DeMore, would it help you all if we gave an acreage specific, like we even narrowed it down to like 3 acres? Like everything they said, but 3 acres.
Yes, as much definition as possible, whether it's acreage, uses. But please know, the moment we send this out,
right,
it'll attract significant interest. And for those who will consider offering, they're going to have to expend pretty significant time and money to develop a proposal. Right. And without a defined document, a defined RFP, then I'm not sure we're doing the potential offers any favors.
Right. Mr.
So
Mayor.
yes, any definition.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So if I may clarify, I think, as Mr. Rambo said, there is a misunderstanding over what economic development is, right? Like economic development is, as you said, Mr. Rambo, businesses that can locate anywhere. So one of the focuses has been what software businesses or coding businesses that can come here, plant their business here, and have like an office park space for that. That is separate and distinct from recreation usages and bringing in tournaments. That is separate and distinct from providing amenities to the community. Those are very different things. Given that this property was bought with the intent of economic development, when we voted on it, I believe that was the intent. I think that like narrowing the focus to, I agree with Mr. Chapman, to preserve the wetlands that are there and use the highlands for economic development purposes with potential for workforce housing is the scope of the motion. Is that clear?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Microphone.
I know my motion got voted down. It was kind of the point of the consultant was to take all of this out of it. This person was just going to come in and say, hey, its best use is open space, or its best use is recreation. You can't fill it. That was the point. How much would the consultant be, just out of curiosity, even though 20,000?
Well, if we're going to need several areas of expertise. So just civil engineering consultation will be $20,000, $30,000 likely for something like this. Okay. And that's not getting into real estate values, attorneys. Well, we do have a fabulous attorney who can construct leases in the room, but you know what I'm saying. There's many layers to this.
That was my point, was get rid of this kind of confusion and somebody just say, here you go. This is, I am the professional, not me, the consultant. Here's what I think all the best uses are. I would just like a decision made on the property, but
Mr. Mayor,
look at all of them.
If I may.
Yes.
I think the problem is what's your motivation for what highest and best use is. So I think until council makes a decision on what that highest and best use is and provides direction, a consultant, if it's an environmentalist consultant, they're going to say the best use is wetland preservation. If it's someone who's an economic development consultant, they're going to say turn the 36 acres into a tech park. You know, if it's someone coming from the sports community and if we create this rec advisory commission, they're going to say turn the whole thing into ball fields, fill and build the ball fields. So I think until this council muddles through together as a group, muddles through what we want for this property and gives direction to staff for an RFP, I don't think we're going to get anywhere with it. So which is why I would like to reiterate my motion to direct staff to construct an RFP with a focus on wetland preservation for the wetlands and economic development with an option for workforce housing for the highlands.
I will amend my second to that.
All right, so they have them in parliamentarian. Are we okay here?
Yes, Mayor.
The motion has been amended and second, not amended, but amended, but not voted on.
For the record, the initial motion was withdrawn and replaced by this motion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Ritchie, turn your mic on, please.
Wow. Okay, you know, this has been going on for a while, and we're still, I don't think we'll ever get a consensus. But let's just be honest. Okay? And Mr. DeMora, what Ms. Whitley just gave you now, does that give you the clarity you're looking for? Because sadly, we went right back to where we're looking for the preservation of wetlands, the economic development with potential professional housing. Does that help you and staff, sir?
It does for me now.
Okay.
We have an economic development strategy. We have target industries. Those should be the target.
Understand.
Of the proposal that we're setting out. We're adding in green space, and there's an option for housing. So there'll be several that come in that it's going to take review, but we can construct something.
Thank you. And my other question is, just to make sure for clarity, does this motion include what I've been hearing, that we're only looking at the 5 acres that would be still considered high once we reach 2025? Is that my understanding, or is it the whole piece again with the permits that we have in hand? Need to ask someone to make the motion.
I think it's the 5 acres, because I think that it's the direction we've received from much of council and the community is that open space wetland preservation is something that the council cares a lot about.
I just want to add, we may be, and there was a great article published in the Harvard Business Review that companies now are not just looking for low price, they're not looking for low price land or tax incentives, they are looking for value decisions. We might be surprised at who might want to come in and say, we will show you how to preserve wetlands and do eco-friendly environment and create jobs. That's a big deal in America now, and this might give us the chance, because I don't want to fill and bill any wetlands, and I'll be against any proposal that fills the wetlands. If they can do something on the highlands that protects those wetlands, and we think it's sustainable enough, I'll be all, I'll be all for looking at it. I can say no. All right, I think it's time we vote. Oh, yes, ma'am, Ms. Hyde.
I was just going to say, I wish everyone had seen it, but I had gotten the engineering department to give me the topography image. And so the highlands, it's not like a perfect little 5-acre square. You can see the shape of it. I mean, it looks like it could become something really interesting if we could get somebody interested in making this kind of an example for low impact development. But it's kind of high in the middle, and you can see that it's almost like little cul-de-sac shaped pieces that are a little bit high. So it's not going to be a perfect square, but if we could kind of target those highlands and preserve the lower lands, I think something nice could come of it.
We've had a request to restate the motion, please.
Again.
One more time.
If you'd like
Let's just say, okay,
clerk to-
the highlands, as done in the survey.
The 2025.
Yes.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
All right. Are we prepared to vote?
I think so. Yeah.
Would you restate the motion? I just want to make sure we had a lot of discussion, just for clarity for our citizens and all that.
Okay.
Just restate the motion.
So the motion is to direct staff to draft an RFP for development of the Faison Property Road with a focus on preservation of the wetlands and development of the highlands with economic development and the option potentially of workforce housing.
Thank you. All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Would the noes just raise their hand? Okay, 3. So motion passes 6-3. I don't know about everybody else. I need a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute recess, and then we will come back.
We're so good. I love our conversations.
Okay. We have page one still?
I just want to commend this council, even on issues that keep coming back and can be involved in many opinions. I want to thank everybody for the decency and respect and the constructive nature of the debate. So thank everybody very much. I think we're on item 9C. Possible action regarding funding feasibility studies for the undergrounding of power lines in Hopcaw Point and the Grove.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to move for approval of the pilot program to fund 2 neighborhood feasibility studies for the undergrounding of power lines.
Second.
Oh. All right, excellent. Finance Committee recommended a pilot program to use up to $100,000 total of town funds to match the town's Dominion Energy Non-Standard Service Fund to provide for neighborhood feasibility studies for undergrounding power lines in Hopcaw Point in the Grove subdivision.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion? Everybody's not talking, please turn yours off. Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm the commitment, is it a verbal commitment from the neighborhood to fund the cost of the undergrounding, or is it a written commitment? Because what I would not want to happen is that we spend $100,000 on this study and then the neighborhood comes and asks for us to pay the $20 million to underground. Is that?
Just a second, Mr. Ackerford.
Sorry, I brought it originally to Finance Committee. I know that Hopcaw, for a fact, has been going after this, I believe, since 2016. When they spoke, they brought a whole stack of petitions. Nobody knows what the cost is going to be to underground it, and they are stating that they're willing to pay for that cost. The study needs to be done. If you're going to do a study and start to attack the smaller neighborhoods instead of just all the major things, this would be the neighborhoods to do it on, because there's actual traction with it. So what happens is, if we do the study and it doesn't go through, then we have tried and it's a pilot program. I feel that they're going to move forward with it. I can't speak for the Groves. I know I've spoken to Hopcaw, but not the Groves. And there's a lot of data behind their commitment.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo.
I was just going to say, from the Finance Committee, there is no, this does not commit us to any future funding of the project. This is simply to fund the feasibility study. That's not to say that somebody down the road won't ask for money. People ask for it all the time, but this in particular only commits us to funding of the feasibility study.
Any others? All right, the motion is to approve the pilot program for the 2 neighborhoods up to $100,000 with the non-standard service agreement money with Dominion. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I would like to divide the issue between the Groves and Hopcaw.
Let me ask parliamentarian, we have the motion and the second as it is. I guess he would have to ask the person who made the motion to amend their motion.
That
or propose
an amendment.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'll propose an amendment that we divide the issue between the Groves and Hopcaw.
Instead of an amendment, I can amend the motion.
If you'd like to withdraw it and restate it.
Yeah, do you mind if I just, that'd be cleaner. All right, I'll withdraw that motion. I don't know who the second, or no, it's from committee, so it doesn't require a second. So we'll say approval of the pilot program to fund neighborhood feasibility study for the undergrounding of power lines in Hopcaw Point.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. The second motion would be approval of a pilot program to fund the feasibility study for the undergrounding of power lines in the Groves.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right. Motion and second. Discussion? Yes, sir.
I know Hopcaw brought substantial petitions to us. Did we have the same kind of petitions from the Groves, or was it simply a request that someone made?
I would say who showed up at the Finance Committee, there was a number of speakers from both neighborhoods. I can't, and a number of people in attendance. I can't sparse out exactly how many for each one, but I think it just ended up being a first come, first serve program. Not to say that if there are other older neighborhoods that don't have undergrounding, that we wouldn't look at providing funding for a feasibility study in the future, but at Finance Committee, there were a number of representatives from both of those neighborhoods.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Corley.
I think this is a great thing and something that I wish we could do throughout the entire town. But what got me to vote yes on this was, I'm not sure who said it, but if people, I think this will give us a good baseline whether people are actually willing to ante up or if they're just asking or talking. So I think it's a good use of money, I guess. So I'm going to vote yes.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The reason I'm asking that question is because we had signed documents from Hopcall, a number of them. I mean, it was like that thick. I don't remember seeing that from the Groves, and maybe we'll get it. Maybe they can do the petitions like Hopcall did, and I think it's a great idea, as Councilmember Corbin. But when people sign something, that means we've got their word that they're willing to pay for it. I didn't see that in the Groves. That's the only reason I wanted to divide the issue.
Right, Ms. Corley?
Questions, but would it matter? Would the cost of this study go up if they did both neighborhoods versus one? It might as well.
Cost, I don't know about that, but probably not much. The point being is we've got a neighborhood that's signed on the bottom line. And I don't remember seeing, and maybe we do. If anybody here has something that they were given from the Groves, other than just talk, because we had a lot of talk since, I guess, since I've been on the council and before when I ran for council from Hopcall. And I think it's a great idea. The Groves needs it, but they've got to come to us with the
HOA or something.
With signed agreements.
Do y'all have an HOA in the Groves, or is it just a property owners association?
There's no ordinance. Most of the older neighborhoods don't have one.
That's what
But I was just going to say, so a signed petition doesn't commit you to anything. No one in Hopcall is committed to funding the cost of it because they don't know what the cost is. That's all the ask is to figure out what the actual cost is. So a petition saying they'd be willing to fund the cost holds no weight.
Yes, sir. Mr. Eichhorn.
I think this is, it's a great pilot program. You've got one neighborhood that came with a bunch of petitions, one neighborhood that didn't come with a bunch of petitions. We fund it. We find out what it is that will get the neighborhoods to actually pay for their undergrounding. And if it works, and you've got two different looks right now. You've got one, 40 or 50 people showed up with alcohol. The other one, I think about 4 people spoke with the Groves. Try them out, see what works. And if they don't do the undergrounding, you are looking at the end of the pilot study.
Mr. DeMore, let me ask you a question. If because there's a lot in both points of this. Hopcall, I think, obviously foregone conclusion on the Groves. If we do that study, even though we don't have all the petitions and stuff, will that in effect sort of be a baseline for the town? Because other neighborhoods are going to say, well, how about us? Can we do one? Would this give us a good idea? Hopcall is its own issue. Would this give us a good idea for a neighborhood like the Groves if we're going to try to replicate this, or citizens are going to ask for it in other parts of the town? Is there some learnable stuff from this survey if we go ahead and do it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from this study. Okay, so it wouldn't be a wash if other members of the Grove say, well, we didn't all show up, we didn't all want it, but it would let us know what it's going to be like for other neighborhoods. Is that okay? I just want to make sure there was some learning material in it. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, my question about that baseline. So if all it takes is 4 people from a neighborhood to come in and say, let's do this study, and we're going to spend $100,000 on it, I guess I kind of want to see a bigger commitment. I kind of want to see what Hobcock came in with, which is a significant portion of the neighborhood saying they were on board with it, significant portion saying that they're willing to fund the cost of the undergrounding, that they're willing to do that for their neighborhood, because we don't have the funding for that. And I think, what I don't want to create is a baseline that allows 4 people from a neighborhood to expend $100,000 of town money on a feasibility study when there's no funding on our end to actually complete it, and when there's no commitment from the neighborhood that they're willing to fund the cost of the undergrounding.
Just one short clarification, not arguing the points of that. Just wanted to say that this says to use up to $100,000 of town funds, but in my speaking with Dominion, they estimate the cost of a neighborhood feasibility study to be around $50,000. Half of that would be funded through the town's Dominion Energy non-standard service funds, which are funds from Dominion. So really, from Dominion, the estimated cost to the town is $25,000 for each study, approximately. Size of the neighborhood matters and stuff too. So I think one neighborhood might end up costing a little bit more than the other, but that was what they gave me.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm not against doing undergrounding in Hobcaw if they want. I really not. My concern is exactly what Councilmember Whitley said. We can only do so many of these. And I say we together with Dominion can only do so many of these. You've got a number of communities that have power lines over the houses. We need to have some kind of a commitment, and we need to have a process, because if we don't have a process, we're going to be inundated with other communities. And that's my whole point. I think it's a great idea to do something that grows. But if we do that for a community that we had 3 or 4 people come in and say, yeah, I'd like to have it in my neighborhood by my house, we're going to be inundated. That's my only point.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This motion is only on the groves, correct? Right.
I believe the Hobcaw's already approved.
Yes.
We separated.
Yes, Hobcaw was approved. We're only on the groves, yes. Yes, sir, Mr. Microphone.
I have one question, Mr. Pagliarini. So, let's say this goes, I'm not going to assume, but let's assume you just have for.
Did we not vote on Hobcaw?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's
Thank you. Okay. All right.
So,
sorry.
So if this one were to go through, you would have 2 baselines. You would have one where 4 people showed up. You'd have one where 50 people showed up with petitions. Okay. And I hope they both pay the underground. Okay. But this may create the ordinance itself that says this is what we're looking for. This is the level of commitment, because this level may or may not have actually done the undergrounding. I mean, don't we need to create the baseline is what I'm stating.
Sir, you're asking me if
Well,
to create a process,
right,
an ordinance or a process moving forward, this would be helpful.
Well, because you have 2 different extremes.
Well, sir, I agree with our town administrator. He's looking at it more from technical data.
Right.
But I do believe there will be some assistance, at least moving forward, to begin with, to assist with a process moving forward, if that's your question.
Could you restate the motion, please?
Approval of pilot program to fund neighborhood feasibility study for the undergrounding power lines in the groves.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion concerning the groves, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right. 7-2. Motion passes. That finishes section C under item number 9. D is Health, Recreation, and Events Committee, discussion on recreation capital project referendum. Back to you, Councilmember Hyatt. You have all the long-winded items tonight. If you will set this up for us from your committee deliberation.
It's here again. We would like direction again from council.
Microphone.
When it comes to the referendum, we had discussion at committee, and we'd like direction from council. One of the main things we discussed is the timing on the referendum. Do we want to put this referendum to the public this year or wait till the next election? And of course, we do need to decide which items, but we've been discussing this advisory committee, and they could help us and give us some direction and public input on what items to have on the referendum. So we'd like direction from council on the direction for the referendum and possibly the timing on when we want to vote.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
So I've gone back and forth on this a little. There was some talk just about moving it away from 2022 and into 2023. But I think that just delays the ability of the town to move forward on expanding our ball fields, repairing, doing the renovations that need to be done, building out Rifle Range Park, extending the Mount Pleasant Way, maybe a senior center, maybe an art center, just all the different possibilities. If we delay a year, that delays breaking ground for yet another year. And I think that also, and this was Mr. Icafano had the really great point, that if this referendum doesn't pass this year, that gives us an opportunity to understand why it didn't pass this year and create a better referendum for 2023. And just because something fails the first time doesn't mean that you can't try again and that you can't succeed the second time around. I think Mr. Chapman is experienced with that with different referendums where sometimes they fail, sometimes they succeed. And I think that we would be doing the town a disservice. The discussion of the referendum, I brought this forth in like a long time ago to give the Recreation Committee, 6 months ago at least, to give the Recreation Committee, which I'm no longer on, plenty of time to put together the referendum to be in time for the ballot for 2022. This is going to have big turnout because it is a main year election. This is going to give voice to the most members of the community because they turn out more for these major elections, and we will get more of a sense of the broader community of whether or not the community is willing to self-impose a fee, and I think that's something that we had discussed as well, is like how long that's going to be, like 15 years or 10 years or 20, and the amount per $400,000 home, the sliding scale range based on the size of your home. So I am strongly in favor of moving forward with this referendum for 2022 in whatever form this body determines is best. My opinion on referendum uses is I received an email from a constituent that I thought was very pertinent, which was use the referendum to build the new things, the things that we don't have at all, and the things, the little things, the little small ticket items like renovating the pool or Jones Center Conference or Valve should go into our general capital fund, but that the referendum would be more appealing to the public if we're getting these new amenities for the community that are building from nothing. So I would be in favor of slanting the usage towards new things that the community does not have, and like Rifle Range Road Park, building that out to completion and hitting a couple big projects rather than 20 little projects. So I think that's my sense of things, and definitely doing it in 2022.
Yes, sir.
Well stated. So I have some notes. The first thing is that we have told the public that there was going to be a referendum. I don't know how many times we can continue to tell the public that we're going to do something and not do it. I can almost end it there, but I have a tough time doing that. Interest rates can and will go up. We have momentum now. We do have the momentum. Hopefully we're going to put this commission through. They can get through right away and get to work. And like I said, and I echo that, if it fails, we learn, obviously. I think Carter failed 4 times. failed twice, and then there was one error, right? And then you also have the error factor, right? That had to push it a whole election. So, you know, failure's good. Not getting up from the failure is the bad part. Quitting is bad. Failure's okay. We learn. We fail. We get up. We wipe ourselves off. We put it back on. We're not going to quit. Keep going. This is what they want. This is what citizens want. So to continue to delay it is a disservice to the public, in my mind. Thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Pagliarini. So since it's a ballot referendum, it has to go to the Charleston County Board of Elections. And I believe you told me that our first reading on the specifics would have to be at next month's meeting, June.
Correct, sir. Without a special meeting, we want first reading at June and final reading at July, because by the end of July, it needs to be in an appropriate form.
Okay. And if as we move through our agenda tonight, our next item is a Recreation Advisory Commission, and they're not even appointed yet, so they would not, that consideration wouldn't even come up till June. They wouldn't have a meeting to July, so the way I see it, we would be having a referendum going to the Board of Elections after a vote in July, at which our newly appointed commission would not have any input. So I understand what everybody's saying, but you know, do we want to decide this without the input of that commission, or if you've got an idea of how to get that commission's input in there in time for the deadline for the ballot referendum wording, please let me know.
Mayor. Yes, sir. And Councilmember Sandos, if you want to go first, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I agree with that. One of the things when I ran was to try to get some more ball fields, more recreation for this community. We have heard loud and clear from all of the people who want to be on this Recreation Commission that we need more ball fields. This is the way to do it. We don't have it in our budget. This is a way to do it. Now, having said that, I think one of the things when we appoint this commission, and we do it quickly, is we ask them, are you for a referendum to build more fields? Are you for a referendum to build more fields? And if they're not, they don't get appointed. That's what we need them for, to help this referendum get through. Not to meddle in the operations of the Recreation Department, but to help us get this referendum through. So I think we need to do the referendum this year, and I think, like Ms. Whitley, that a bigger turnout helps us. It helps us with more opportunities for people to vote for it, but we need to make sure that it is a referendum for all segments of Mount Pleasant, not just for the ball fields, but for the tennis courts, for pickleball, things like that. So I said my piece.
Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that the recreation folks out in our public have been talking about this for a while. I know that for a fact. We have some very serious recreation-minded people out there. You can tell by, well, today we had all these kids in front of us winning state championships. And, you know, they start from the ground up and they work their way up. So in all different sports, I've seen, how many times have I been out here as well this year recognizing people. So certainly they're talking about it and they're ready to do it. So I'd like to make a motion we approve the Recreation Advisory Commission for the town of Mount Pleasant.
That's not what
That's
we're
not on
discussing.
this agenda. That's the next
That's the next item. We're discussing the referendum.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry. I thought we already got past that. Anyhow, I think they'll help us with that as well. They're working on it now, I guarantee you, because it benefits all of us, especially the recreation community. So I don't think we're going to have an issue of getting the support, serious support from the Recreation Commission, whether or not they're finalizing late. Right now, they're talking about it, and I can promise you they're pushing for it right now.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So
to Ms. Whitley's point, which I agree 100% of not kind of nickel and diming the referendum, and I don't see green space anywhere as a consideration. I thought we had, I felt like council was very interested in buying green space as part of the referendum. So what happens if we go ahead and push this through in a hurry? What happens to the tweaking of this? How long do we have to tweak this in? A month? Is that what you guys are saying? We have to get this done in a month and a half?
Ma'am, again, without special meetings, and remember, there has to be 6 days between if council want to do that. But on a regular schedule, we would have first reading in June, which would be no amendments, and then amendments in July for second reading, if all followed suit.
Mayor, in response to Ms. Corley, I believe there's green space with the rifle range park. Now, how many acres? I don't know, but there is some passive park part of the rifle range park.
No, but I thought we had talked about going out and actively seeking land that we could purchase to save for the town. No, I know.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I don't think we need, I mean, I am all for the Recreation, Health, and Events Commission. I don't think we need them to tell us what needs to be built. I think we need them to advocate and enhance the recreation. I think they are our troops, and they will be out there. This is the easy part, right? We got $50 million to spend. It's already pretty much almost spent. So I don't think we need their input. I think we can have a special meeting, rock and roll, and see what happens. But they're there to advocate. That's what they're there for.
I echo Mr. Acafano. I think that doing a special meeting where we hash out kind of similarly to what we did with the Faison Road project, just as a team, and really finalize this so that staff knows exactly what to draft for the referendum. I mean, I feel like staff has known about the referendum since November, and so I think that there should hopefully potentially be at least some minor draft language of something, even if the specifics are not there yet. And so I would like to move that we, I don't know if this requires a motion, move that we hold a special meeting to hash out the details of the referendum for moving forward with a June vote.
Hang on just a second.
It's not required, ma'am, but certainly if there's a vote for it, then that would constitute the appropriate number of council members to hold a special meeting, and we just need to settle on time and date.
Okay. May I ask for clarification? Are you talking about May, June, before the normal first reading, before the June committee day, or what?
Prior to the June
Committee day, or?
Yeah, I think so, right? Because that's what we would need to do, or it could be after. But the timing, whatever timing we would need in order for a June council meeting first reading.
Okay. All right. Is that the motion?
Oh. Yes.
All right. Is there a second? We have a second. Okay. We're in discussion. Mr. Rainbow's had his hand up for
I was trying to say, I think the purpose in having this on the council agenda was to get a consensus from council. I think it's pretty clear among the Recreation Committee that Rifle Range Road Park is the #1 priority. It encompasses a lot of the goals. I think there was a lot of discussion and dissent as far as whether to do it in November 2022 or November 2023. I feel like as a member of that committee, I've heard pretty loud and clear that most of council feels that we should be ready to roll with this in November 2022. So I feel like this can go back to the committee, and then the committee is pretty ready to draft the language that can then go back to council. I just don't feel like it needs a special council meeting.
Okay, then I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
As long as it's getting on there for 2022, I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Gary, do you withdraw your second?
All right.
I'll withdraw my second.
All right. In response to that, then I'll get to Ms. Hyatt. The only thing I want to add is in a general election like this November, there will be 50,000 votes cast in Mount Pleasant, and it takes 25,000 votes for this to pass. In a municipal election, the last 2 or 3, there have been 17,000 votes in it, and it only takes 8,000 or so, 7,500 to to get a majority. And this is why I asked the question, is our mission to get a referendum on the ballot, or is our mission to pass a referendum? I think our mission is to pass a referendum. I'll be fine doing it this year, but we're raising the bar that much higher by needing 25,000 votes to pass it as opposed to 8,000. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I think, you know, as Mr. Acapano said, if you don't first, you don't succeed, try again. But also, if we are going to basically self-impose a tax on 90,000 to 100,000 residents of Mount Pleasant, shouldn't the most people vote on that as possible, so that there is, so there's not this sense, you know what I mean? Because I think people feel strongly about that one way or another. So I think that providing the opportunity through a major election to allow a higher turnout from Mount Pleasant residents to vote on this referendum will give us guidance for the future should it not pass, and also more buy-in from the community if it does pass.
I hear you, but the same rationale can be used to move our municipal elections to general elections, and they were separated for the reason
Happy to do that as well.
that they're not down ballot. Then you're down ballot and going to get a lot of party-related votes. Ms. Hyatt.
I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Rambo said. I guess this item really was placed here for discussion. We wanted to make sure the council was ready to move forward. The committee's discussed this a great deal, and I think we have an understanding and would be able at our next meeting to put something together. We just wanted a direction as far as timing for the most part.
And you feel like you got that now for the committee, and that motion was withdrawn, so we can move on to the next item. Is that correct? Everybody on board with that? All right. Which is B, discussion and possible action to form a recreation advisory commission in the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee came up with some specifics, and Mr. Pagliarini will tell us that will save us a lot of time tonight. There are really three things we need to know: how many people would be on one, who appoints them, define the focus, and put a sunset clause on it, which can always be renewed and it can always be permanent, but at first, since everybody's appointed for the whole time, to put a duration on it, right?
Yes, sir, Mayor, thank you. Was the committee's vote to form the Recreation Advisory Commission, and as you just suggested, basically four recommendations coming from legal. First, this council should define the number of citizens to serve on the commission. Second, council should decide who and how the appointments will be made. There was discussion at committee that committee could do it. Obviously, you could dispense that responsibility to each council member or the mayor, however you wish to do it. Third, the goals of the committee and the actions of the commission should be defined. Again, the committee determined that perhaps they'd be willing to take on the responsibility to define the goals and direction of the commission. Fourth, I recommend that there be a sunset provision on this, however long you wish. It is easy to extend it, but it is not so easy to end the commission's business, so I would recommend that whatever term you see fit.
All right. Ms. Hyatt.
The Health and Recreation Events Committee recommends to council approval to form a Recreation Advisory Commission to be appointed by the committee with 12 members for a 24-month time frame. The Recreation Department, along with the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee, will have responsibility for tasking and oversight of the commission.
Second.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we have a motion and a second. Yes.
I move to amend this motion that the Recreation Committee form a slate of potential candidates that be approved by full council. Because instead of just having the rec committee appoint it without, because that's only 4 members of council, it's not a quorum of council, and I would want full council to have approval and opportunity to amend the slate of candidates for, because every other commission we have in town, the council does it. And when we did the Settlement Communities Task Force, the planning committee came up with the slate of candidates, but it was approved by council.
Okay, so that was a motion and a second to amend
I don't know who was the second.
that motion.
Yes, sir, to amend the motion.
The motion was to amend so that council has final approval over the composite of the Recreation Advisory Committee.
Okay. So we have a motion, second, we're in discussion. Let me make sure I got this right, that the HRE committee would come back to full council with the slate that they have vetted, is that correct?
That's correct. And then
With the actual slate, not with a large group of, but the actual
right. So
slate.
if they received 50 applicants, they would narrow it down to the 12, and then full council would have an opportunity to review that and perhaps see the alternates. Because I think Mr. Icafano had some discussion that there would be like a rectangular ball field representative, a baseball, ball field representative, an arts representative, someone from the wellness community, and like almost like seats like we have for our ATAC. So I think to ensure that everything is fully covered, allowing full council to see the slate, see the alternatives, and perhaps make some changes if so desired, and then vote on the full slate of candidates. So the preliminary screening would be done by the Health and Wellness Committee.
Mr. Raymond.
I'm okay with that, but I do want to just say that was actually the reason why we had kind of talked about the Health and Rec Committee coming up with that, because we were worried if every council member like has one person they get to elect, then everybody just elects their buddy, and you don't end up with diversity and schools of thought. But I'm okay with that amendment. But that was the reasoning behind it, was actually to accomplish that goal.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Icafano.
So will we still be following then to ensure that the different sections are being followed then?
There's nothing in the motion that defines sectors of sports that they come from, but that would be the intention in part of the deliberation.
Okay.
It's not defined, because then we'll be voting on which sectors have a defined seat.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And this question is from Mr. Paglarini. We as council cannot go out and advocate to pass this referendum. As a town board or commission, whatever you want to call it, are they permitted to go out and advocate for the referendum?
Sir, I don't know that there's really a restriction on council taking a position on the referendum. Where the restrictions fall is that town resources cannot be used. For example, staff, employees, everyone cannot, time, money cannot be used to advocate for or against. Therefore, it would be my position that anyone on the commission could advocate as they see fit.
Okay, I want to make sure that was clear, because I don't want us to get in a position where we run afoul of state law because we set up this commission.
Right.
But we need a group out there on our behalf, talking to their friends, family, neighbors, whatever, to get this passed. So I thought like it.
Okay, so the amendment, as you heard stated, was that the committee, HRE committee, would bring the slate to full council for a vote. We're voting on the amendment, not on the primary motion. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So now we will be voting on the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? I have one quick question, and this is not part of the motion, but are we talking about bringing this to the next council meeting, to the June council meeting? Is that the intention?
Sir, that is possible. I want to have that conversation with the clerk to see how we're going to advertise it and the response time, so
Right.
that the committee would have appropriate time to put
Okay.
the slate
Do we
together.
need any time frame understood or stated?
No, sir.
We just vote to do that. Okay, got it.
That's correct.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I have a question. How many votes through council does this take? Does this take 2 votes, or can't it just be ad hoc, right? It's just one vote?
It'd be a committee action.
Just a committee action
coming
for
from committee.
Doesn't even have to go back to council.
No, sir, it has to go back to council for the slate, but it'd be an action committee, just like this item is.
Forming the committee is done after.
Right. One time. Excellent.
Good question. All right. All in favor of the motion as amended, please. Any opposed? All right. The motion passes unanimously. All right. This moves us to section 10, council new business.
Move to approve items 1 through 3.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second to approve items 1 through 3 in section 10A. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I do have just a quick question. I don't know whether it's Eric or David, but I brought up the idea of Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island. It seems that we're now going to have this agreement, automatic aid, with other municipalities doing this. We don't have it with Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island.
There's a reason for that, and Chief Mixon mentioned this to committee. If it's okay with you, sir, Mr. Mayor, Chief Mixon.
Yes, please
can elaborate.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. So, in talking with Isle of Palms and the new chief, he is interested. There's some interest with their council as well. He just needs a little bit of time to get his feet under him, but there is interest. We talked today via email about it, and there is still an existing automatic aid agreement with Sullivan's Island. This one with the 5 departments existing, they've been doing it since 2012. And in talking with the city of Charleston, they don't want to enter into an agreement with just us. They want us to come into this agreement because they believe in what it does. And talking to all of those chiefs, they've really seen a positive impact on the community. So we feel the same for Mount Pleasant, that it would affect us in a positive manner. And also it's a trial. So if we find that it's not beneficial for our citizens, then we'll back out of the agreement.
Absolutely, that's good. But it seems to me like one of the meetings we had, I had a newspaper article showing that we did not have an automatic aid with Sullivan's Island. Has something new come up?
No, sir. I think in working with Mr. Pagliarini, I think that was a couple years ago now, we did determine that it was still valid, and we are still acting as if it is, and the dispatch is automatically set up with Sullivan's.
You say you're acting as if it is. I mean, it either is or it isn't, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. It is what we determined a few years back when we brought it up.
Okay.
It's an active agreement. The provision that I believe you're talking about was an automatic aid for that. I believe, testing my memory, it was automatic aid for something else.
Pandemic response.
Pandemic response. But we have an active one with Sullivan's Island right now.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
All right, the motion is to approve items 1, 2, and 3 under section 10A, council new business. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Item number 4 came through police, judicial, and legal, and this is something that I have been working on as a member of Mount Pleasant Waterworks, as has Councilman Rambo, and this is to amend our annexation ordinance regarding sewer service. Now, I would ask everybody to look at item D, what it does and what it does not do, and we got great input at the Police, Judicial, and Legal Committee. I want to thank Councilmember Whitley for your amendment to what we had originally proposed. What this does is this permanently will prohibit massive REUs for undeveloped property or for commercial. What this does is, if you have a residential residence, zone residence with a septic tank as of the date that this is anticipated to pass second reading, which would be June 14th, as of that day, and if sewer is currently available to that property, does not mean or does not entitle anyone to have sewer run to their property if it's not already existent or accessible to that property. It limits you to 1 residential equivalent unit per existing residential structure. And this is run by Mount Pleasant Waterworks, and as Councilman Rambo will tell you, this partnership between the Waterworks Commission and the town has worked for however many years this has been in effect. They are getting ready to get tens of millions of dollars in grants, we think, and we have worked and we advocated that the first part of those grants be spent in areas that will clean up the septic tanks around Shem Creek, because we know that it has a serious water quality issue and is in fact failing. So by limiting this to 1 REU per existing structure, there will be no more development in the county areas because of this agreement that will be carried out through Waterworks and the partnership that we've had forever on this. It does not open it up to gentrification. It does not open it up to development of raw land as it is right now, nor does this apply to commercial development. So it passed unanimously at our committee, and this is a recommendation from the committee, so Mr. Parliamentarian, I don't believe it requires a second. But you heard Waterworks speak tonight. This was also a recommendation from our Settlement Community Task Force. And so I think we'll be keeping faith with the people. The negative that someone might say is, will this be a disincentive to annexation? We've had this for 30-something years, and we've had a few annexations to get sewer, but I think this will apply to those that are not contiguous. And so this will get us clean water for our citizens and clean water in Shem Creek, and I think be an olive branch to those who would resent the town for withholding sewer if they did not annex. So I'm strongly advocating this and asking council to pass this tonight. The motion is on the floor. It's from committee, and we're in discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. Rambert.
Just wanted to say the large reason behind this is really environmental. It's really just to clean up our waterways, as well as to be fair and equitable to everyone living in our area. And in the interest of time, I'll just say ditto to everything you just said.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion from the committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. This moves us to section B, old business, final reading of an ordinance.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. This has to do with the budget for the town of Mount Pleasant for fiscal year 2023. Any discussion or any questions of Ms. Kotoff? There being none, all in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Final reading, ordinance number 22027.
This moves us to item C, executive session, legal and contractual. This was placed on the agenda properly by 3 members of this council for discussion and possible action related to the potential purchase of real property for public use.
Move to go into executive session for the stated purpose.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? All right, before we vote, must read, council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting, which this is. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated, please say aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session. We have reconvened. No votes were cast, no decisions made. There being no motions to follow from the information shared in executive session, that completes our agenda, and we stand adjourned.